Welcome to What's in the Box, episodes of horror with Donna and Eric. I'm Donna,
I'm Eric.
and today we have another double feature for you. We're going to be discussing the Howling book by Gary Brandner. Sorry, I forgot his name.
Yep.
Um, and the movie. Um, Let me just grab my copy because I'll have to unblur myself. I have this
That's a cool
version.
cover. So now
Yeah.
we've seen two of the five covers that we'll be discussing later.
Yep. Yeah, my thrift books. I told you I already went ahead and bought books two and three, because I kind of want to see where this goes, because I've seen the second Howling movie way back in the day,
Yeah.
so I know what that's about. But
It's not anything like the book at all. So
yeah, so I'm really interested to see where the books go
yeah, I
in the
am actually
movies.
interested to see because I don't remember. I don't know if I guess maybe I haven't read the second book, but I know the second movie is nothing like the book. But um, I definitely feel like we need to end our werewolf discussions with Howling 2 to see where
Hmm.
he went.
Yeah, for sure.
And maybe we make two and three double feature, where we talk about them both at the end. But for sure, I do want to read two to end cap our werewolf thing. But we have quite a few werewolf novels
Planned.
um,
Yeah,
planned, so I
yeah,
think we'll be able to we'll hit most of the high notes. So that'll be kind of fun.
yeah, yeah. Good thing. Um, so we did a double feature with the book. We watched the movie. Um, the book was published in 77, I
Yeah,
believe. Uh,
77.
and the movie came out in 81.
Mm-hmm.
So some oldies here. So what did you think? Did you like the book?
So the funny thing is, I read the book, and when I read it 10 years ago, and I liked it 10 years. I remember liking it. Read it this time, and I thought at the end I wasn't that jazzed with it. So then um, I watched the movie, and I've seen the movie a couple times. It's been a while, but and I thought, okay, we'll watch the movie, and I liked a lot of things about the movie. But by the time the movie was done, I started thinking, well, maybe I do like the book a little more than I did because I had some problems with the movie. But then I watched some special features last night on the collector's edition, and I watched some people talking behind the scenes stuff, and then I watched some of the highlights and all that stuff, and I got a different take on what they were trying to do. And so then I started thinking, well, maybe I enjoyed them both. So overall, I have some problems, but they aren't bad. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, yeah.
I have a feeling that, and you know what? I think I'm in a mode right now. This isn't the good time for me to be reading and critiquing stuff. I think I might be overtly negative about things. I don't know why, but so well, as we discuss it, I have a feeling I'm going to be wishy-washy, and then I might go back and forth. But I
Hmm.
did definitely have some issues with the book. That I'll tell you, with the movie, 99% of it is awesome, especially as you just take it as a movie.
Right.
I hated the ending, and I think the ending's terrible with the
Mm,
movie. But I
yeah.
think they fixed a lot of the things I hated about the book. So I just I don't know. We'll have to go through it.
Yeah. Yeah. So this was my first time reading the book. I actually remember watching The Howling as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I've said it before, my parents really didn't care what we watched as long as it wasn't hardcore porn. So I was watching The Howling,
Which this one has a little touch of that. Not
yeah,
not not hardcore, but it's pretty
yeah.
brazen at the very beginning.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Um,
Um, so yeah, we'd watch it, my mom was into horror movies and stuff,
mhm.
so it was common for us to watch horror movies back in the day. And let's see, I was born 75 and the movie came out 81. So I probably saw it probably about 84, 83-ish, maybe. Um,
So probably about the same time when American Werewolf
yeah,
came out.
yeah, yeah.
So
So yeah, I had remembered the movie. I've seen it several times over the years. It had been a while since I watched it. Um, I liked the book and I liked the movie. They're very, very, very different.
now, and I was the same way thinking that. And when I was watching the special features, when they brought Joe Dante in to direct, the guy that did Gremlins, he threw the script out that was based on the book. They basically just took her name. and the Howling, and that was it. We wrote the entire thing. That's why
Wow.
it's so different.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, well, that makes more sense now because as a companion piece, you and I are probably on the same page. These aren't the same thing, so it's hard
Yeah.
to gauge it. But now when you look at it and say, oh, well, it's just an original idea using the name The Howling, that's a totally different beast. So,
Yeah. Yeah. They are completely different. They are completely, like you said, it's just the name of Karen.
mhm.
Some other Marsha was a big
Yeah,
character
I
in
guess she's.
both of
Did they
them.
keep they kept the same name though, right? For her, the female wolf.
No.
Yeah, see, they changed that too. So then I was like, yeah, so
Yeah.
it's like Bill and I think Chris is the
Chris.
same.
Yep.
And
And then
I
Karen.
liked, yeah, and Karen, but I liked the change they made with her friend in the movie. She's a co-worker,
Yeah.
in a relationship with Chris. I like that they took Chris and didn't make him that bachelor because that doesn't really fit very well. I just so let's start with the book. Um, I hated the way it starts with the story about the European town and the name of the town, and it's very straightforward. Hey, this is this town, this happened,
Yep.
and then it rolls into our thing. And then they just give you the exact same name of the town when they buy the house, and you're like, well, I mean, I don't know. I just felt like there's no foreshadowing. It's like they're spoon feeding you everything. They don't think you're smart enough to figure out that, oh, it's the same people, same idea. The town itself may be populated with
Right.
whatever. So I didn't like that. And I also I thought the movie did a much better job of making Karen seem like anything other than a victim.
Right. Yeah. In the book, she's definitely a victim. I didn't like
Is she just a housewife in the book?
in the book, she's just a housewife.
Right, because she doesn't. It doesn't seem like she had a career. But then later, they try and write her a little stronger. But by
Yeah.
that time, you've already established her as basically just the victim.
Yeah. And in the book, I hated how they put so much emphasis on the bite that the attacker gave her. Now I don't know. I've never read the sequel, so I don't know if it comes into play in the
Yeah, I
next
don't know.
book.
I
But
think that
yeah, they totally put a lot of emphasis on the bite. And where does your mind naturally take you? This is a werewolf book. She got bitten. Oh, she's going to turn into a werewolf,
Yeah, except for
right?
they're not even talking about a werewolf bite. They're just talking about a normal guy. I mean, the fact that he opens the book with the big rape scene from a guy that's just a random gardener, just
Gardner,
breaks into
yeah,
the room, breaks into her house, rapes her, bites her, leaves the mark, and then she's traumatized. I was like, I like that better than the idea. I mean, you almost kind of got that sense in the movie that they were going to try and bite her early. I mean, I figure that's what Eddie was talking about when he said he was going to set her body on fire, was that
yeah,
he was going to turn her initially.
right,
Um, I don't know. I just the way that they handled all of that, and plus the thing that bothered me about it. I mean, you could still see the bite on her skin, and her husband is upset that she won't have sex with them. That she's having trouble, and it's like
yeah,
he literally was just raped, dude, less than 6 months ago, and
yeah,
you're like freaking out because she won't have sex, or she's. It's not even that she won't have sex; she's trying.
yeah,
But she keeps having those issues, and then he's acting like a toddler. And I thought,
yeah,
you know what? These aren't people in their 20s. They're in their. It felt like they were mid to early to mid 30s
right,
that should know a little bit better, a little bit more about their sexuality and their relationship with their other person. I thought, man, this is crazy.
yeah, yeah. I
How
wasn't.
I mean, it was almost like stamping your feet out of the room,
Hmm.
toddler stuff when she wouldn't have sex, And I'm like, man, I just didn't get it. I mean, did not get it. But it made more sense in the book with his reaction to the lady.
To
That's the
Marsha, yeah,
Yeah, it made
yeah,
way more sense because he's feeling sexually frustrated. She's exotic and alluring, and so then you kind of get that animal magnetism, and you can kind of see where
right,
he's going to lean. That's not in the movie at all. It made no sense in the movie for him to be attracted or have sex with her or do anything.
yeah.
You know,
And honestly, the actress that played Marsha in the movie,
no,
I don't know.
you're
I
right.
didn't.
No, she's not, right? Because the
Yeah.
way that she described, it's like she's just, I mean, she's fine, but at the same time, she's supposed to be this creature that's almost god level in,
Yeah.
maybe you're thinking of like Venus, you're thinking
Hmm.
of something like that. And it's like, no, they didn't really capture that. She's not exotic, really. She's more kind of trashy,
Yeah.
and that's fine, but for what they were trying to portray, you know, and then when you go back and you think, well, okay, they didn't really use the book, so maybe we're putting too much on that character casting. But at the
Hmm.
same time, I thought, yeah, there's no way that she's gonna, at the drop of a hat, you know what I mean? This guy is
Right.
already established in the movie not to be a horn dog, so it's not like he's going around trying to score 24/7. So she needed to be super something
Yeah.
to lure him that way. And I thought they didn't capture that portion of it very well. Now when they're
Yeah.
in the middle of turning into werewolves, yeah, okay, I get that, I guess. We're at that point now, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah. I really liked in the book how they kind of like built up to Bill and Marcia being
Mhm.
together.
Yeah, yeah, it made sense. There was some tension. There was
Yeah.
an obvious attraction to the point where the wife noticed it. Like,
Hmm.
are you going to say anything? I mean, she's gorgeous. This lady is gorgeous. Why are you not talking about how pretty she is? Talk about the elephant in the room, this hot
Right.
chick or
Right.
whatever. And
Yeah.
he's, so you get that. You can feel it growing. The author does a great job with that buildup. I thought he did really well. I just didn't think he handled uh, the rape section very well. So,
Yeah.
but I mean, what are you gonna do? I guess that might be part of the '70s, whatever.
Well, yeah, I don't know. It's funny you say that because I'm like um watching a lot of like 70s horror lately, and like all of them have some kind of rape in them.
Sure, sure. And I'm not saying that it shouldn't or that it's
Right.
whatever, but I'm just like just the
Noticing a
way.
theme.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
even mind that they did that. I just don't like the way he handled it within the relationship of the characters,
Yeah.
because then that, I mean, to me that's even worse than the rape itself. Is that he's not emotionally or psychologically there for her as she's trying to struggle with this terrible thing that happened to her.
Right.
But yeah, no, and in my mind, and it's always been that way since I was I guess when I started watching horror, and I always thought, well, that's probably the worst thing right there. And
Yeah.
that's probably why it's so prevalent, in the kind of books and movies and all that stuff.
Yeah. I did like the character of Chris in the book. Um,
Yeah, I mean, he's not a
it,
terrible character. Did you think that was weird though, the way he reacted? He drives her all the way out, hours, and they go, "Hey, come see the house." Nah, I gotta go back. Gotta go back home.
yeah,
You know what
I
I mean?
thought
I
that
thought that was weird.
I kind of read into it that maybe he had a little thing for
You think maybe
Karen.
she does? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I guess he did. He did have some feelings.
Yeah.
More than friendship, possibly. Well, he does come across as a horn dog, though, doesn't he?
Yeah. Yeah.
He's going to go to Mexico and try and take his mind off of everything, and he's going through girlfriends left and right. And
Yeah, but he's the one that found Karen after the attack, and
yeah, yeah. So
so maybe he was kind of like, I don't know, I just kind of not got any like sexual tension between the two of them. Just I just maybe felt it more in my own mind, I guess. I kind of conjured it up thinking that there was something going on. Maybe Chris had a little bit
yeah,
of a,
I can see that
yeah,
definitely, because you got to think. He's a guy. He's single. We don't know what their relationship is like.
yeah,
Outside of the attack. I mean, that's really the whole point of the book. Everything is based around that attack and their reaction to it, and how they're forced to leave Los Angeles and go to this town, which I you see didn't that even that still felt weird too. They find a
yeah,
house, what was it, like an hour and a half away from LA, in a
yeah.
town that doesn't really exist, and it's named exactly as the town as we read in the first prologue. And I thought, well, that's kind of, I mean, you
Yeah,
really had
and
to
it
be,
was,
yeah, it's like you had to be dense not to pick up
yeah,
immediately what the guy was trying to do here. And I get it, because we know what it was about. It's called The Howling, and people in our, maybe in '77 you didn't know much about stuff like that, but this point in time I figured that, yeah, most of this stuff is just being spoon fed to you. So
yeah. I find it curious though that on the cover of this one, it
mhm.
says a terrifying tale of the occult.
Right. And I think in the 70s and even in the Wolfman, there's a lot of the occult is the reason that the werewolves exist. There's
Mm,
a lot of pentagrams. There's a lot of devil. This is like the devil, the demon coming out of you, that kind of thing. So I think that it's always tied into the occult.
yeah.
But I think also, what have we discussed through all our readings of the 70s? Everybody was looking at God and
Hmm.
demons and possessions and the occult, and everything was. So I think you slap the occult on your cover if you want to sell copies. So
Yeah. Yeah.
what did mine have that too? Yeah, the terrifying tale of the occult. So yeah, but I think that's what it is, because like when the Wolfman changes, before he changes, the pentagram
Hmm.
comes on his hand in like the old one from the 30s and the ones they did with Hammer and stuff. So the mark of the devil and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I think that's where they go with the occult. But I think in actuality, it's the movie does a much better job. They're like, screw the occult. We're a bunch of just crazy werewolf people,
Yep.
and they throw all the rules out except for the silver bullet and the fire, and they just had a good time with it. And you're right, that movie is a fun movie. I just didn't like the ending. I thought the ending was like, you know what? And after I watched the documentary, it tells you why. It was a commentary on the media and the way people see how stories are portrayed and how they don't always buy into what the media was selling at that point, which
Yeah.
is hilarious. Because if you just think about how time is now and how people are with the media, to see that people were talking about it in the early 80s, I think that just puts a smile on my face. It's like,
Yeah.
wow, nothing changes.
Yeah. And I hate how they made Karen's werewolf.
You know what I did
Could
too? I said,
they
"What is
have
this? A
made
Chihuahua? A Pekingese is what I was thinking. A Pekingese
it
or one of those kinds of dogs."
Ewok? It
Yes,
was like an Ewok.
and they talked about that on the one of the documentaries I watched, and they wanted her werewolf to be like that because she's a good person and she
Oh,
didn't ask to be a werewolf, and so she's a
okay.
not a terrible thing. So her werewolf is softer, not quite as aggressive and snouty and mean. And I thought, well, okay, I get that, but still, the way that it ends with her changing on the news in the middle of a report, and then the guy shoots her on TV, and everybody's just like, oh, special effects are crazy on TV. And I
Cut to
thought the best
commercial.
response were the two kids. The two kids, when the girl's like, the news lady's turning into a werewolf, and the parents are like, okay, whatever, not even listening
Yeah.
to the kids. I thought that
Yeah.
was funny. But that was just Joe Dante just making fun of that at the end. But yeah, I thought if they could have ended it like they did in the book, I thought the book ended perfectly.
Hmm.
It was so open ended. They're driving away, howling in the distance. So they're not all dead.
Yep.
Perfect ending. And
Yeah.
then, you didn't have to have this other stuff. But in a way, though, I wonder if Dee Wallace was like, I don't want to be in another one of these. So make sure that I'm not in another one of these. So I'll change
Hmm.
at the end and they kill my character and I don't have to come back.
Yeah.
Because she was still relatively unknown, though, at that point. She was coming off of, I want to say she was in 10, but she hadn't done ET. She got ET off of the Howling.
Oh, wow.
And then
I
from,
didn't
and
know
I,
that.
and I think doesn't she do Cujo?
She was in Cujo. Yep. She was
And
the
then
mom
she's
in
in she's
Cujo.
in a handful of really good um, early 80s horror movies, because then she gets pulled back into the Frighteners with Peter Jackson to play
Hmm.
the mom of the crazy girl, when because of the role she did in the Howling and all that stuff. So and then Joe Dante got Gremlins off of the Howling, so that's pretty cool. um
But I think, it was for the length that it is, it was
yeah.
pretty decent.
Hmm.
Um,
I agree. It's
yeah,
a
I
perfect
don't think,
length. There's
yeah,
no fat on that book. And
nope, definitely
there's
not.
no, the only thing I didn't like, I said, you know what, you could have got rid of the friend character. I didn't like all she comes to town, the lady that came to town that ended up being,
Inez.
yeah, I
Yeah.
thought she was, I almost felt like they wrote, or he wrote her in there just to shock people, because there's no reason for any of that backstory. There's no reason for any of you could have had all the same reaction without her ended up being, what was it? She was like a gay nun or something.
Yeah,
that had been
yeah,
banished from the church and all that. And so
yep,
you didn't need any of it. You needed
no,
absolutely none of it. Just like you didn't need any of that information about Chris and his feelings for her. And
hmm
like you said, you picked up on the vibe. I thought it would have been much more powerful if we would have got more of a vibe between Inez and Karen. And then you could have had, whatever you wanted it to be. But he went out of his way to try and be shocking in 77, it feels like. But I do
yeah,
feel like that character like that is shocking in 77.
yeah, and I don't know. I kind of pictured Inez as like an older
Yeah, I
lady.
kind of did too until they made it into that weird. She
Yeah,
runs, abandons her because
yeah,
her sexuality is so overpowering that she can't keep it in her pants for
yeah,
2 more days to help her friend fight off werewolves.
right.
That's where we have to. I'm like, I don't. This is. I'm okay
Yeah,
with the stuff. I'm not okay with her reaction to the stuff. It's
yeah,
as unbelievable as the husband not getting it. But again, and I think that I thought I know guys though that would be like, well, I don't get it. It's been 6 months. You know what I mean? So I mean, I
mm,
guess I could see it. I was just irritated by the husband's reaction.
yeah,
I also thought they flipped it in the movie. Do you remember when? So he gets bit and then gets rabies shots in the stomach because they're like, well, you can't take chances. You might have rabies.
right.
And so they start giving him all the rabies shots. Those are terrible rabies shots. And then she wants to have sex finally. And he's like, no, I just had all these shots. My stomach is killing me. I can't do it. And then she's all like, oh, what are you talking about? Why can't we
Yeah,
have sex? I thought, well,
yeah,
that's the exact problem I had in the book now being played off in the movie with just the different characters, which I
yeah.
thought was funny. I also thought they did a bad thing by saying he got bit by a wolf,
hmm
because she's on the phone. Oh, he got bit by a wolf. I mean, getting bit by a wolf's a pretty big deal. They should have said
Yeah,
dog. He got bit
yeah,
by a dog. The book handled it much better, saying he didn't even remember what bit him because he was
right.
so disoriented and everything. So
And the fog,
yeah, I thought the book is so good at making you feel like you're standing in the middle of the woods and there's something out there. I really did
yeah,
feel like he did a really good job at that. I really enjoyed that. And I liked the sparse characters in the book, and we're talking about a town full of people that you never see. It's almost a ghost town, but we're told it's packed with all these people. So
right.
that makes us think at the end how many wolves might still be there for that sequel.
Yeah,
And that kind of makes that fun. But in the movie, we're
there's like,
introduced to that huge group, and it's
yeah,
more of a commune. Is that what you would think it was? The
yeah. I would
community.
say it was more of a commune.
Did you get the feeling that it was the doctors like, oh, what do you like, I don't know, like a group home, almost. I kind of like the instead of it, but it's a town, but it felt like it almost felt like a
Yeah,
rehab
but
center
was it even? But yeah, you're right. Yeah, it felt like a rehab.
because he had the room where he had all the people and stuff and they were telling their
Yeah,
stories, and I thought that's really awkward. And
yeah.
so it's better that she wasn't. That's the other thing in the movie, she's not raped.
But are you
She's,
sure about that?
well, I got.
Because they never mentioned it. But when I was watching it, because I watched it last night, they never mentioned it. And she did have that issue where her and Bill were trying to have sex, and she's like, "I'm not ready yet." But I was watching the scene in the booth at the porno store there. Um, it's very brief,
Mhm.
but it does look like he was raping her
See,
because
I
there's
got
a
the idea that she was seeing him transform
yeah.
into the wolf.
So both, because if you kind of have to watch it. I actually rewound it because I was like, did I just see what I think I just saw? When they're in the booth, he tells her to turn around, and then whatever happens, um, you can see a brief second of her with him behind her, and then you see another brief second of him like thrusting.
I'll have to go back and check because I
Yeah,
felt like he was changing. She saw the change, and then he gets shot, and I thought maybe the trauma was from um, the tenseness of the situation, but also the murder of the guy.
yeah, yeah. But they totally like didn't even mention anything about a rape. But then again, like I said, later on in the movie, they're trying to have sex, and she's like, "Oh, I'm not ready."
Yeah, but then she had that flashback of the camera and the shadow, and so I thought it
Yeah,
was more of just the tenseness of the moment and the way the guy was acting towards her. And so I didn't think she'd actually been raped, but maybe she had been,
Yeah.
which would add to it. It would make a little more sense, her complete. But then you could tie it in, and well, maybe she saw him change, and seeing somebody turn into a werewolf would freak you out if you didn't remember it. So,
Yeah.
um, but it definitely wasn't as graphic as the rape that happened in the book.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. That's why I was like, wait a minute, and I rewound it.
Yeah, so there, yeah, and so they said that they didn't want to. They wanted to have something going on the screen, and that's why they videotaped what they did. The director, I guess, taped those are movies they made themselves
Oh,
that,
wow.
and then they put it on the screen, and they both dictate rapes. They're like rape-esque porn or whatever. So it was
Yeah. And
supposed to
how
put that thought in your head. But yeah,
yeah.
I don't know if yeah, I must not have been paying enough attention. I'll have to go back and watch that part
Well,
too.
I mean, it's very dark.
Yeah,
That
I mean, they
scene
do a
is
very good job of
yeah.
making that, as creepy as they could. And
Yeah.
that's why I was so shocked that, I sent you all the people, but I didn't include Eddie, even though I guess he is a pretty important character. But then I saw who Eddie was, and I thought, oh my God, I cannot believe that's the guy who is
Yeah.
this overtly sexual predator. When I think of him as just a, kind of a nerdy dude from,
Nerdy. Yeah.
all the science fiction shows that came out much later. So, yeah, I was shocked. In fact, one of the documentaries he pops up, and I'm like, what is that guy doing here? He's not in the movie. And then it
Yeah.
goes through, and they finally introduce him as the character. And I thought, oh my, I got to get back up there and get the
Yeah.
pictures ready.
It was actually I was gonna ask you about that because when you sent me the pictures, I'm like, where's Eddie? Like, you gotta have Eddie.
Yeah, I don't know. You know what? I didn't feel like he was, and I guess he was important, but I just was like, I don't know. He just seemed like a setup kind of character,
Yeah. Yeah, and
like
of
he was
course
just there.
the difference between the book and the movie, Marcia is not even related to Eddie.
Mhm. Well, no, neither. I don't think Eddie's related to her either. I think he's just one of the spare werewolves. Her brother is the guy that got his hand cut off.
Yeah. Well, so
That
I
that I
thought I
didn't send a
read
picture of him. He's somebody else. I don't know who that is.
yeah, TC, whoever. I think it was
Yeah.
just the main character. But I thought I read somewhere that in the movie, Eddie Quist is supposed to be Marcia's husband.
Oh, is she? Yeah. Well, that
Yeah,
would make sense
I thought I had
because
read
they
that.
had all that art and stuff.
Yeah. But then that wouldn't make sense because they had like, was that her bedroom too or something?
Well, what the only thing that doesn't make sense is that she's so sexual, and they
Yeah.
haven't. You would think that they would be one of those, mate for life kind of situations like they
Yeah.
usually do in those.
Yeah, maybe I just misread something or what I read wasn't factual.
See, and I
Um,
kind of felt like Eddie was the outcast of the group. He's going around doing the murders and doing all the crazy stuff, and
yeah.
then maybe he's a folk hero to some of the werewolves, the ones that want to be werewolves, but the
Yeah.
doctor for sure, he's trying to contain the beast within and make sure everybody doesn't go crazy. And
Yeah.
so I did like, um I guess the movie's got the psychological, focus and the struggle between man and animal and all that kind of stuff. And those were interesting, but they're just more, to push the story along. It felt like because the movie does a really good job of just sitting back and letting you have fun with the kills and the chases and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I thought the characters were more fun. The outside characters, the Townsies and stuff, were more
Hmm.
fun in the movie than they were in the book. They were
Yeah.
just kind of there, like I said, but they barely gave us any characters.
In the book, yeah, because in the
Yeah.
book we had Oriole,
And his,
Oriole,
yeah,
and
and
her
at
wife
the end,
Etienne,
yeah,
the Gadyak, um, the sheriff dude,
yeah, and then the
um,
doctor,
the doctor, Marcia, Bill and Karen and Chris, and then Inez. And that
yeah,
was, I think with the exception of like the police guy that they talked to in the other town.
and then the two hikers that were there for
Oh yeah,
just a
the two
page.
hikers. Yeah.
Yeah, but those are more just, happenstance kind of meetings and things of that nature. Nothing to really, just something to advance the narrative. Nothing to get attached. I liked it better that they had them basically just dropped in the middle of the town, and instead of it being a town, it's more of a community, like we said, like a rehab thing, and
Yeah.
doing all that stuff. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah. It was kind of weird. Like, and to make Marcia stand out and TC, her brother, stand out so much. Like were not anything like
Yeah, everybody else was
the
normal.
yeah, the other people. As far as like their way they dressed, like they were almost like gypsies. Like, are we supposed to think that they were like
Yeah, and that might be
gypsies
it.
or
Well, I think that's what they were telling us in the book originally, that these were like a gypsy kind of group, and
yeah,
and so they were very. And I think part of that was to make you think of the exotic nature, because I think that's what a lot of people think of when they think of gypsy women. They're kind of exotic, and and,
yeah,
and then the gypsies also tie into the original werewolf, movies, because that's
mhm,
all gypsy stuff too.
yeah,
So maybe it is a nod to the gypsies, but yeah, she's kind of a gypsy slash biker,
right, yeah,
and he looked like basically a homeless person that was wearing fur. So
yeah,
they're like, oh look, they wear the fur, so they're just telling you that these two are.
yeah,
If I wonder if they were done that way as not red herrings per se, but as a device to make you focus on them and go, okay, well, those are the bad guys, obviously, so
mm,
that we totally ignore the fact that maybe everybody else is too.
yeah. Yeah, I don't know, because I just they just stand out so much,
Hmm.
you know.
And we can get back to that when they first meet him. I mean, he's the husband, Bill, is almost repulsed by her.
Right.
Not, so it's totally different than the book. And I thought they really did a bad job with all that. So,
Yeah, because
um,
in the when they first meet, he's getting punched or whatever,
yeah,
and she's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm looking for my wife." And she's like, "Why?" And
yeah,
he just kind of like walked away, because he looks like, what the heck,
yeah. He
you
didn't.
know?
He wasn't up to. So that right there tells you that he's very. They just did a better job, I thought, with the husband in this one. So
Yeah, and and in the book when he first meets Marsha, you could tell it's like instant
yeah,
like lust or infatuation or whatever you want to call it.
yeah.
Um,
He had eyes for her immediately.
yep,
So yeah, and so then it makes sense. The frustration of their not having sex, and then the frustration he has at work, and the isolation, and then going out and then running into her the way he does makes way more sense than it does in the movie. In the
yeah,
movie, it just if she doesn't bite him, then he's probably not having sex with her, since he's turning into the werewolf at that point. So
yeah, yep. I mean, the Karen character
she
movie
got
versus
stronger in the book.
yeah,
She starts off as just milk toast, which of course, whatever, you
yeah,
get that, you understand that. And then she
yeah,
slowly grows stronger to the end. She's, it'd be interesting if she's in the second one. If she's in the second one, that'd be kind of interesting to see how she reacts. So
yeah,
I did enjoy the movie version, where she starts off, she's already kind of independent, kind of, at that time she uses her maiden name.
hmm,
That seemed out of place for early 80s. So she's kind of independent. She's in this part of town that she shouldn't be in, doing the job. Then the documentary, they said that was a big thing during the early 80s, was women reporters doing stuff like that. So a lot of movies at that time would write the female character as a reporter, because it allowed them to do that kind of stuff. um, but she kind of got more hysterical as the movie went on,
yeah,
and then what was refreshing is that her friend became the kind of the hero for a while, for a section
right,
there. Her friend
yeah,
was the one fighting the
Terry,
wolves, and
yeah,
she's the one, discovering what's going on and putting it together that it's werewolves and stuff. She doesn't, the Karen doesn't buy into werewolves until much later. I think, does she have to see one before she believes that they're werewolves?
yeah.
I think,
So I don't think
yeah.
werewolves even
Doesn't even
come
cross her mind that there's
doesn't even cross her
werewolves,
mind, yeah,
which
at
is
all.
weird because we think she saw the transformation.
Right,
So if she saw it, then she has to know something there. So you would think that she would have been a little more receptive to the whole thing, but maybe it's just they're not talking about it to her.
yeah,
But yeah, I thought it was really, in the book, it's like normal stuff. She meets the lady. The lady's like, "Oh, everybody's a werewolf," kind of thing, and then so she thinks, "Well, that's kind of crazy," but she buys into it pretty quick in the book, But
yeah,
it seems like she's going to fight it tooth and nail through the movie. I thought they
yeah,
handled the silver bullets better in the movie as well, having him already made at a shop where you
yeah,
could buy him, because it didn't seem plausible that he could get the note, get the voicemail,
yeah,
run to a place, make silver bullets and then get to town, quick enough to do anything. So
Yeah. Yeah, and be able to, well, first of all, to be able to buy, he had to buy silver.
yeah, that's right. He didn't even have the silver to melt
Yeah,
down. He had to go find some and buy it. Yeah, that's
yeah,
ridiculous.
and then make a 2 hour drive.
On a Friday or something, because I think
Yeah,
he was supposed to be at work and it was Friday and he was going to go early to go to Mexico.
yeah. So
So
in LA, so
yeah,
there's traffic. So
yeah. So that's a what I told my wife. I thought the funny part was the things that I was having to suspend my belief with was never there's a werewolf. That I never had a problem with. It was always the way the husband was acting or how they got the bullets or whatever. But
yeah,
you shouldn't. The werewolf was the thing I was supposed to suspend all my belief with. So
yeah. Or it
or
didn't take him five
disbelief.
hours to make a 2 hour drive in LA.
Yeah, yeah, no traffic. So, but no, I thought as I was watching the documentary, the guy said there was one with the producer, and he said that the Howling 4 is actually based off of the first book, which makes me want to rush out and go find Howling 4
Oh yeah, wow.
and see how they follow it. So he says that one they actually followed the storyline of the book. So I'm interested to see if they actually do that because I watched all the Howlings. They all were pretty popular. I think when I was in Panama. I think 4 and 5 came out when I lived in Panama, and I was always renting horror movies and watching cheap
Yeah.
things.
I don't think I've seen, I know I've seen the second one, because I remember Marsha's like a big,
Yeah, I think
big,
she's a big player, and Christopher Lee's in it, so it actually
yeah.
has that weight to it.
Hmm.
Um,
But I don't think I've ever seen any other
yeah, I've seen
Howling
there's one
movies.
where they fight vampires. I want to say that's 5. I know the third one is in Australia, so there's marsupials involved.
Oh, you know what? Now that
Um,
you say the marsupials, I remember that. Yeah.
I know
So I have
I
seen.
know I've seen. I want to say I've seen up to 6, maybe 7, but I think there's like 9.
Mm,
So, and
yeah.
who knows, maybe there'll be a new one at some point. I'm shocked it's not a show because it's a perfect setting for a show, a town of werewolves.
Mm,
I could see that being a mini series or anything.
yeah.
But yeah, like let's read 2 and then see maybe that takes us somewhere we can see,
Yeah.
something different.
Yeah. So let's talk about the movie. What in the world? I love the movie. I mean, it was a good movie for what it was for being in the 80s.
Yeah, I thought they did a really good job.
But that transformation scene with Eddie in the doctor's office took forever.
That's exactly what I thought. I was like, why wouldn't you just run away or kill, set it
Yeah,
on fire while it's standing there? But
yeah.
at
And
the same
she's just
time,
standing there. Like, okay, I've never been faced with watching a man turn into a werewolf, so I guess it could be paralyzing
and
to,
maybe the amount of time is exaggerated for
yeah,
effect. But no, the way it was, the first I thought the exact same thing. I thought, well, why isn't she just leaving
yeah,
or setting them on fire? She didn't have a silver bullet, but we already saw regular bullets would put him out of commission for a day or two. We
yeah,
saw that. They thought they had him in the morgue.
mm,
So yeah, no, I'm with you. But I get at the same time they're trying to show off um,
yeah.
the mechanics of the mouth growing and the all the he said the guy in the makeup he said that when the throat thing would go up it cut off his breathing and so
Oh
he
wow.
would like they had like just seconds to get the footage before he passes out.
Oh
So
my
I
gosh.
thought that was kind of funny and
Yeah.
unique because they then all this stuff's not tested. The guy that was in charge of special effects was like 21 at the time,
Oh
and
my
it's like
gosh.
one of his major first things he's ever done.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it's just like with the thing. That guy that's his first movie, and he did all this crazy stuff, and he had no idea what he was doing half the time. So
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was I was kind of like, all right, you know.
yeah, and I guess initially they didn't have the budget for the full body, so it just was his face and arms attacking her, and they were able to convince them to give him more money. So that because I think that scene where he reaches down and grabs the folder and then he throws everything and you get a full body shot of him.
Yeah.
That's a pretty powerful scene. That's a pretty cool.
Yeah.
They're like, wow, that dog's huge.
Yep.
Um, that would have been missing if they would have not been able to go back and film that. I think that would have been a problem.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it would have not seemed as scary.
yeah,
Um,
especially nowadays because they CGI everything and you get to see as much as you do. And I kind of enjoy those movies where you have to fill in the blanks. So I
right.
kind of like that. Uh, but yeah, no,
Yeah.
I agree with you totally. I think that that was the longest transformation, and
I mean,
and
I
I
think maybe in American Werewolf in London, David's transformation
oh, that's
takes,
forever, but that's not the same situation. He's not trying to
yeah,
attack anybody. He
yeah,
doesn't even think he doesn't even know what's going on. So that makes
yeah,
more sense.
yeah, that's definitely a different situation. I was just like, run. Come on,
Yeah,
D. Let's go.
yeah, she
Take
should have been
off.
out the window. She was out the window when the other one attacked, so I don't know why she didn't with this one.
Yeah. And
Um,
then she takes the jar of whatever, um, and splashes it on him. Like,
yeah, sulfuric acid, I guess, is it that's what it
I,
was supposed to be,
I don't know, but I personally, I would have just thrown the whole bottle.
right? And hope it shattered. Well, I'm
Yeah.
only wondering if maybe acid, the whatever the container is, maybe it's shatterproof or something, just so you don't have that
Yeah,
issue. But
maybe.
yeah, I thought that was, and that and that made it that much difficult to see who was playing Eddie because
Yeah.
he's all burned up at that point.
Yeah. And he had
And
like the bullet wounds and from
then I
being
thought
shot.
that was kind of weird though, because anything you read that has werewolves or does werewolves or stuff is how exhausting the change is.
Hmm.
And when the guy shows up, Chris, when he shows up in the movie, Eddie's back to normal, but he's got his face all burned up, and he
Yeah.
decides he's going to change back into a werewolf. It's like
Again, yeah.
it didn't feel like that would have been feasible. Like
Yeah.
that would have been too much. But I know it was just that so they could do their Indiana Jones scene of him shooting him and then walking out because the guy thought because he even told him shoot me, like
Yeah.
because he thought he would survive it.
Yeah. And he's like, what I want to know is where did he get the pants? Because when Chris comes in, Eddie's
Yeah,
wearing a pair of pants,
he's
and
back. He's fully
he's at
clothed
the doc.
again.
Yeah, he's at the doc. He doesn't have a shirt on, but he's at the doctor's office, and we know that he ripped through all of his clothes. So
Yeah,
where did he get those new pants? Like, did he have time to run home and get a change, like, and
unless
come
he's
back?
wearing her pants. Maybe he's wearing her pants.
Yeah, maybe he took them off Terry. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
Although Terry's body at that point was in the barn or whatever that was.
yeah. I guess they had moved it. So
Yeah. Which
yeah,
that didn't make any sense. Why did they were they planning on like having dinner? Like,
yeah. I think that's actually what they were gonna do. I think they were gonna do something with it.
yeah.
So, but yeah, because at that point she can't become a werewolf; she's dead. So,
Yeah.
um, but
Un
overall, the movie's fun. There's the good scares. It makes sense the way I thought the way they approached all of it makes sense. Until I just didn't like the ending. So,
yeah.
but
I loved the music.
yeah, the
That
music's really good.
creepy, almost kind of sounds like a little kid kind of.
What's funny about that? I'm glad I watched all the documentaries now because they they hired a guy from Poland or Czechoslovakia or something, and they had just enough money to bring him to the studio, explain what they were doing, and showing us some stuff, and then they sent him home, and then he mailed them a score, and they're like,
Oh
well,
wow.
we're just like, thank God we never had to do this, like do this again because we just got lucky he got it right, and he somehow got that organ at the same time. And so he made it very organ centric and stuff, which I
Yeah.
think really does a great job of it. But yeah, it's shocking because usually they get the footage and they can write while they have the footage going and they can kind of see what's going on. And it's a big process. This guy just got hired off the street basically just to throw stuff together. So the fact that he got it right and did so well it's amazing. It's like a
Yeah.
perfect storm, I guess, something like that.
Yep. Yeah, it was absolutely the one of the creepiest,
Yeah, I agree. Because
most,
sometimes horror scores they have good little snippets, but overall it's not. But I thought the Howling was really good, beginning to
yeah,
end. Captured everything you needed it to.
yep, absolutely. Let's go into our book covers here.
That one's cool, but I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know if it's anything. I mean, it. I don't think there's any cover that would stop me from buying it and wouldn't
Yeah.
pique my interest. It's just an interesting. I mean, you see the Howling, and
Yeah.
then you see the Supernatural. That one says a terrifying tale of
It
the
was
supernatural.
supernatural.
So Supernatural, the occult.
Yeah.
I think both of those would grab your attention. And I think, it's interesting. It almost looks like they're trying to capture the movie poster of the woman,
Mm,
trying to pull you in with the woman screaming and clawing through the thing, which we'll
yeah.
get to in a minute, I'm sure.
Yeah.
This is
This
the
one.
new cover. This is
Yeah.
what the new series, and I hate it.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll take it back. I do not like this cover.
Yeah. I don't like it either. It looks too Beauty and the Beast. It looks too
Yeah.
Beast. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
This guy's got a library and a talking candlestick, and
Yeah.
he's not going to do anything to you, but maybe make some noise.
Yeah.
Of course,
Yeah.
the movie
This is
poster. That's
movie
what I love
poster.
that. It's
Yep.
just really cool. Suggestive without really telling you for sure.
Yep.
I like it.
And of course, this is the cover that I have. I kind of like the
I do too. I
simplicity
think it's really cool.
of this one.
Hmm.
And I think 2 and 3 have a similar look. I mean, they have the new cover that we saw. 2 and 3 have that new cover too, but
Yeah.
2 and 3 have similar covers to
Yeah,
this
I think
with
they
the
use don't they use more of the claws or whatever?
yeah, yeah. So I like this one. It's very eye-catching, the red and the black. Um, Out of all of them, I think the new one is my least favorite.
Yeah, 100%.
Oh, and then there's this one,
This
which
one
I
is
honest, yeah,
I saw was they had the limited edition hardcover.
okay,
So this must be like a newer thing. This one's fine.
yeah.
But
I mean, it's not anything special.
no, nothing special, but it's okay.
Yeah, yeah. Now we get into,
Okay, do you know who Roger Corman is, right?
I do not.
He's this huge director from he's known as he's a director producer from he started like I think in the 30s, but he's like the godfather of cheap horror movies. He did the Pit and the Pendulum, all the Edgar Allan Poe
Okay,
horrors.
yeah.
This is the guy. He's the director. He's the brainchild behind it. He's the guy that gave us Piranha. He's the guy that gave us Death Race 2000. What he ended up doing in the 70s was he would make a production company, and he would hire out new talent and give people their first shot at a movie, but he's very cheap. He goes, you go make this movie, you have this much money, don't spend a day, a dollar more, you have this many days. And so most of the famous directors of the 80s all basically worked for this guy at some point. And so he put Joe Dante, put him in the movie as a joke, because he goes into the phone booth and the first thing he does is looks for the dime because he's so cheap. And so
Uh,
it was a nod to everybody that likes Roger Corman, knows about him, and has ever worked with him. I just thought it was a funny thing because as soon as he came on the screen, I go, "Hey, that's Roger Corman." I was like, I didn't remember him being in the movie. But if you're a big fan of like the old Vincent Price movies and all that stuff, he's the guy behind him. So
oh wow. Okay, that's cool to know. And we have Marcia.
she just looks like she's overly made up, too much makeup,
Yeah,
biker jungle woman kind of vibe
yeah.
going on. But there's nothing that makes me think that Bill would
She's
jump into her arms.
yeah, yeah. I don't know. She's actually dead. She died in her 40s.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah. I
that's
saw
kind of
that.
weird.
Yeah, when I was looking up the cast. I forget what her real name is, but yeah, she passed away in her 40s. I don't remember what from, but um, yeah, I was like, wow, that was shocking. You know,
It is shocking. Yeah, it is really
yeah.
weird.
But yeah, I mean, I remember her from the sequel movie. Um, she just doesn't capture the Marcia
Of
in
the
the
book.
book.
Yeah, I
Just
100% agree.
yeah, it just doesn't capture her. Especially at the end, um, where she's like, I like mine rare. When the guy's like, oh, a. For the lady.
Yeah, at the very end. Yeah,
She's wearing the same outfit. Like, do werewolves
yeah,
not have change of clothing?
yeah. I know, right? Yeah, it didn't feel that way with her or her brother.
Yeah.
Now, did you recognize this guy?
No.
He's from the Avengers, the old TV show, The Avengers, where he had a bowler cap. It's like a spy show from Britain.
Oh, okay.
It's really popular. It was on A&E during the 80s and 90s and stuff. My mom's a big fan. I love the old Avengers. So it's kind of cool to see him play this part of the Doctor,
Yeah.
Um,
His character was okay. I mean, I liked the Doctor in the book, of course.
yeah, he had
Um,
that more, you know, folksy next door neighbor kind of doctor, that you would like the old from the 50s. It kind of like a Norman Rockwell doctor is what I think of it when I think of the guy in the book.
yeah. So this Doctor was part of the news team or something, it
Well, I
kind of
think they
looked like.
brought him in to talk about the serial killer who happened to be Eddie. He was
Yeah.
brought in to basically give them a point of view without realizing that he actually knows Eddie and can really give a point of view since they're all werewolves.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, he was just brought in to be the talking head that you normally see in these news programs, the expert, or however you want to put it.
Yeah. I thought it was weird that they're like working together and that she's like seeing him as a psychiatrist
Yeah.
and
Well,
he's like, you know what you need? You need to go to my commune up on the
yeah.
coast and relax you.
Which doesn't it make you feel like he thought maybe that they needed to well, see, he says it later. We can't kill her because she
Yeah.
can't disappear. She's too famous. So he really must have been trying to help her.
Yeah.
But doesn't it seem weird that he put her right in the middle of what the problem was and then was like, well, I hope nothing bad happens as
Yeah.
the werewolves all go crazy. So yeah, no, he
Yeah.
wasn't. I guess he wasn't a very good doctor.
No, definitely not. And Terry, I really liked her character.
Yeah.
She was not in the book. Um, I really liked the like investigations they were doing into the the werewolves or into Eddie. But what cracked me up is when they're in Eddie's apartment in the city and
Mhm.
they're like touching all this stuff. And then they're like, oh, we should call the cops. And Chris is like, oh, we will in a minute or whatever.
Yeah, their
And I'm like,
fingerprints on everything. Yeah.
they're putting fingerprints all over everything and the
It's kind
window
of
is
like
just randomly open. Like this dude
right.
hasn't been like,
Yeah, you think you'd have been robbed by that time with the window
yeah,
open.
because
And
the window was like completely, there wasn't even a screen and the dog was like almost in the room,
yeah,
or apartment or whatever.
it had the vibe of the Omen. They
Hmm.
let the priest. They got into the priest's apartment. They're walking around checking everything out. The two
Yeah,
guys, remember, and then so it had that feel to it, like nobody believes in the police or anything anymore, and they're just gonna go do whatever they want.
yeah,
Yeah, no, I thought she was fantastic.
yeah. And then Chris Halloran, of course, Terry's boyfriend.
Yeah, I
Um,
just the way they wrote him I liked him so much. I mean, he's fine in the book, but I just like the way he was in the show.
yeah.
I did enjoy him, and I thought although at the end he grabs her, they run. Does he even ask about Terry, or it's like
Well,
they're
he
like,
heard Terry die.
yeah, but he doesn't know for sure. He just heard her,
Mm,
scream, and then it goes dead,
yeah, that's true.
and
Yeah,
they
good
calls the
point.
cops. But I mean, the cops like, yeah, we'll check it out. But they didn't even.
The cop was a werewolf anyways.
Right, right. But the guy
Yeah.
he talked to on the phone, I don't think was the sheriff. He talked to a regular cop.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're
So,
right. He did not ask about Terry at all. And he didn't actually go into the barn.
or Bill. They didn't talk about Bill. He
Yeah.
didn't say, "Where's everybody else?" Just I'll grab her and run.
Yeah.
So that's
And
fine.
yeah.
I mean, I
And
get it. There's a lot of werewolves, and they just
yeah.
burned a whole bunch of them to death. So
Yeah. Yeah. So Karen and Bill. Um, I
there's. I was just like, go.
I was gonna say in the book, the Bill werewolf tries to protect her,
Hmm.
or Roy, because his name is actually Roy in the book.
Right.
Um, so I kind of wish they would have tried to do that in the movie too.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, so he does betray her in the book with the other werewolf, but then in the book, you get the feeling that he's almost unable to stop himself. Right.
yeah,
But the whole time he's got regret and guilt and all that stuff. And when he does become the werewolf, he does try to protect her. in the movie at the beginning, you feel like he's trying to protect her. Oh, I hit the microphone. Trying to protect her, and he's trying to do everything he can to help her. But then as the movie goes on, he pulls away from her and then
Yeah.
ends up doing all this other stuff and then doesn't try to protect her at the end. I
Yeah.
definitely like the Roy, you know, at the end of the book than I do more of the Bill throughout this one.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
was really
Because
weird too. I mean, he's a he doesn't eat meat, which is very odd for that time period, even in California, I would think.
yeah.
And I think that was only used as a device so that when he does eat meat, we as the viewers can realize
Oh,
it's weird because
something's
everybody else
wrong.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't. Karen doesn't blink,
Yeah.
and Terry's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot you don't eat meat." And he's all like chowing down. Like, no,
Yeah.
this is great. But technically, he would want it raw. In the book, he wants raw meat. He doesn't
Yeah.
want cooked meat. So,
Yeah.
um,
Because you get that whole, he gets this like hunger and he's not eating regular food.
yeah,
And then he doesn't feel satisfied until he eats, what was there,
yeah,
a
he
rabbit,
feels like
I
a
think.
real, yeah, like a
Yeah.
real wolf, a werewolf
Hmm.
happening in the movie. I don't know. It's kind of hard to place it all, but he's a fine character. I mean, initially he's trying to help Karen.
Yeah.
Um, I think they dropped the ball a few times, but nothing that was, I mean, in this kind of movie, sometimes you just have to step back and just enjoy it for what it is. So,
Yeah.
the funny story here though is they were engaged in real
Oh.
life, and she had the part, and they could not find anybody to play Bill, and so she's like, well, I want to suggest him, but she didn't want to come out and say my fiance. So she went around and around and like acted like she didn't know who he was, and then finally said, "Oh, I worked with this guy once," and then gave his name, and they called him, and he came in and auditioned, and he got the part. And then the next day they call him, and she answers the phone, and the producer's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I dialed the wrong number. I meant to call the guy." She goes, "Oh no, I'll get him." And he's like, "You son of a bitch."
Yeah, he's
So
here. He's just, uh,
he's like, "Man, now you guys are gonna double team up. Like anytime you both have an issue, and I got to deal with two of you." And
yeah.
but apparently they have two totally different styles of acting. And she said she ended up having a ton of trouble working with him because they did things so differently.
Well, yeah. Never work with your significant other.
Yeah. Especially if at some point he has to slap you because when she gets a little hysterical and he's all wolfing out, he smacks the tar out of her
Yep.
and she has to storm out. I could not imagine because apparently she holds on to that negative energy in the character. She can't let it go when they say
Right.
cut. So I have a feeling that night was probably very uncomfortable at the house as they're discussing
Yeah. As
the
they're
day of
having dinner.
filming, you know. And she's like,
Yeah.
"Well, I just think," and he's like, "Oh, here we go."
Yeah. Here we go. And then we got Eddie, good old Eddie.
Okay. I mean, I know this guy here, I don't like him that much because I hated his character on Stargate, Atlantis. But he's been on Deep Space Nine. He's in a ton of movies, and I had no idea that he is
Mm.
this. I mean, he's like an accountant character. He's always the guy they bring in to do the numbers and there's nothing extraordinary about him at all. And then here he is. And apparently this was like his first major role because he was
Oh,
coming off Broadway.
oh,
But here
wow.
he is as this overly sexual predator. And he's, you know, I know the wig, but, he had shorter hair at the time, but still he's got all this hair and it blew my mind that was Eddie. I mean, that
Yeah.
was the highlight of my thing when I figured that out. So
Yeah. Well, it's easy to not recognize who he really is because we don't ever see Eddie looking like a
I
normal
know
human.
that's true. He's
Because
got acid face.
this is the first time we see Eddie's face,
Yeah. And you
and
could,
he's like bloated and gray, and he's
yeah.
got the bullet wound, and his eyes are red. You
Yeah,
know.
I would never have put it together until I saw the documentary. And then he's one of the people they're interviewing. I kept thinking, why are they interviewing this guy? He's not in the movie. And then when they
Yeah.
finally posted why he was there, I was like, oh my God, this is
Yeah.
amazing. I mean, it's fun because I like all the behind the scenes stuff. So when something sneaks by me, I think, oh, this is great. So
Hmm.
I get excited about learning these kind of things.
Yeah. But I mean, with the Eddie character, you don't see his face in the beginning of the movie, but he's like the major
Yeah.
person. Um,
There would be no movie without Eddie.
right.
I mean, he sets her up to have to go to the community.
Yeah. And he
Um,
just can, first we don't see his face because of the lighting in the booth, and then you see him. This is the first time we see his face, and he looks like he just came back from the dead.
yeah, and
And
did
then the next time we see him, his face is all like melted.
and doesn't it feel like he's just infatuated with her, and that's the only reason he's doing this? Because
Yeah.
it really came across that way,
Yeah, I think that's the whole thing because, he was calling her and telling her stuff about the murders that he was
right?
doing. Um,
But it makes you
I
wonder why, just because she's a
yes,
TV person, I guess.
he must have just seen her on the news and became, obsessed with her. Um, yeah, I kind of feel like for the movie anyways, Eddie was feeling obsessed with her and somehow they wanted to get her into the family. I'll just say it like
Right.
that, you know, because
Except
the
for
doctor like yeah, he wanted to help her, but if he really wanted to help her, he wouldn't have sent her to where all these werewolves were.
right, yeah, I don't. Yeah, that's a glaring plot hole right there. But yeah, the whole thing. I mean, you would think he would stop Eddie from doing what he was doing. There's no way they didn't know Eddie was the serial killer.
Yeah, yeah, there's definitely no way they didn't know.
I
Um,
mean, they're celebrating it. The crazy, her brother has all the articles in his room and the drawings like he had left and all that stuff. So we know they're celebrating it all.
yeah, so they had to be wanting to increase the family, so to speak, you
Right.
know.
Which makes you wonder, is that how they do it? Because in the book, I think they discuss having it naturally. Two werewolves could make a werewolf.
Hmm.
But it seemed like in the movie, the only way you could make a werewolf was by biting somebody.
Yeah. Um,
That would be
uh,
creepy. A whole bunch of little werewolf kids running around. I wonder why
I
they
know, like
haven't
the
done that yet.
marsupials from the third
Yeah.
movie. Now I'm gonna have to rewatch all those movies and see the
Yeah.
ones I didn't.
No, and they get worse, of course, because the budgets are going to get slashed, and they're not going to, and they don't have CGI yet. So there's
Mm,
going to be a period of time where they get real ridiculous. But then I have a feeling they'll bounce up a little bit, you know, because they will have CGI and they'll be able to do some of the things they couldn't do before. But I'm a big fan of practical horror, so I like it
yeah.
when they leave stuff up to your imagination and they have to do, practical mechanical things. And I'm always a fan to see how they pull it off.
Yeah. I mean, I like CGI and, but I enjoy these 80s movies, 70s movies where,
Yeah.
it looks ridiculously fake sometimes. It's still enjoyable because back
Right.
then, I'm sure when I was a kid watching this movie, I was terrified, you
Oh
know?
yeah, definitely, definitely. And the fact that it just shows how, the ingenuity of man, how they can do these visual effects and come up with ways to get around the limitations of what was in front of us.
Yeah.
Of course they don't do that to, better society or cure cancer or anything like that, but we can watch a guy turn into a werewolf. But
Yeah.
whatever, I'll take what I can get. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, I'm the same way. I love the old movies and watching how they, especially when you get in the 50s, 60s, and just the tricks they have for back then. And
Yeah, those are our
I can
most
appreciate all the work they put into making this werewolf, because this is the first real transformation you see of a werewolf on film, I think. Because before, all the other stuff was just the when they film stills, of the person, and they
mhm,
put more makeup and then take a picture and then more makeup, take a picture, and then they replay the the film, and then it's slowly transformed. But there's no movement involved. This one
right.
is very violent and long and crazy and
And long.
organic.
Yeah. I was
Yeah.
just watching it. I'm like, okay, he's done. Oh, no, no, he's not.
But see, and I think that's ties in with us. First off, we've seen so many of these kinds of movies, so now we're used to maybe the CGI instant transformation. But also now that we're adults, I'm sure as kids we would have been like, oh yeah, of course you just stand there. But now we're more practical because I can't tell you how many movies I'm like, well, how does the guy afford the mortgage of that house? Or
Mm,
or any of that kind of stuff when we're watching a movie, because you think of everything differently now that you're an adult.
yeah. Yeah.
I
Um,
wonder what the taxes are on that property that that
I
guy owns.
know.
How much is this community costing these people, and how are they making money? Because I don't see anybody working other than the doctor. And
Yeah,
if that's the case, they killed the golden goose. They turned on him pretty quick at the end.
yeah. My favorite thing about this whole movie is the meat references.
Yeah,
When they kill Karen and they go right to a Alpo commercial with the canned food slopping in the bowl.
yeah,
Um, and then at the very end, like the end credits are just watching a burger cook, you
yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah. They
So I
definitely he and from what I understand, the director's very he likes those kinds of visual jokes, and he likes to put all that in his movies. And I remember him doing that with the Burbs, and Gremlins has got a ton of stuff like that too. So he's a good director. I'm surprised. I'm trying to think. I can't think of anything he did past the '80s that really stands out. All of his stuff seems to be '80s and the Piranhas in the late '70s.
yeah,
I'll have to go back and look at all of his stuff and see if anything snuck by.
yeah. So if you had to pick, what did you enjoy better, the movie or the book?
Boy, I guess gun to head, I'd say the movie. Just by hair though. And I'll probably
Yeah,
read the book again. I like I said, I didn't like the beginning of the book, but I did enjoy the 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 journey.
yeah,
I love the journey of the way the book, and I thought the ending was much more powerful in the book. So it's probably how I feel that day, which I'm going to like more. But
yeah,
I do enjoy it. The movie has a little bit of humor to it that the book is missing, and
yeah.
so depending on what you're looking for, but I think both of them deliver a really good werewolf story,
Hmm.
and I'm hoping that as we continue reading these books with werewolves in them, that we're not going to end up going backwards. Um, I'm interested to see how these other people handled the transformations and the characters and the rules and all that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, honestly, I don't think I could pick which one I like better. As you said, they're both really good werewolf stories. Um, they just happen to be kind of related because of the title and
Yeah,
based off of. Um, I mean, it's really hard for me to say I like the book better than I like the movie or vice versa. Um, because they are, in their own rights, they're pretty decent,
yeah,
you know?
they both hold up. There's no arguing that they are both solid
Yeah.
chapters in the werewolf entertainment section.
All right, now it's time for our not Stephen King book of the week. Since we're doing werewolves, I chose Becoming by Lucas Milliron. Um, this is actually a werewolf book.
Oh, cool.
Um, yeah, you don't really get that until you're a good way into the book. Um, and the cover doesn't lead you to think that it's a werewolf book. The blurb, because I had no idea this was actually going to be about werewolves. It's all about this kid, Cody. He works at like a Walmart type store. Um, and things just start happening, and he's working, and these armed men come in to try to rob the store and are threatening this young woman. And this kid, Cody, who works stocking shelves, ends up like defeating the two armed men. Um, and he ends up like taking off and somehow ends up with this guy in the woods. And then you find out that they're werewolves, and this kid Cody is a werewolf. Um, so it's really interesting, and it's kind of a coming of age story as well. There is like a side story about a girl, and I can't remember what her name is, but she's a vampire. So you've got these two storylines that are kind of converging. There is a sequel called Rage, that I have not read yet. I'm sorry, Lucas. Um, but yeah, this was a really great book. I just happened to see it. Um, I think I only read it because I had read Cocksucker by Lucas. And then I saw he had written this as well. So I'm like, oh, I really like that book, so I'm going to pick up this one. Um, yeah, I was really shocked because, like I said, spoiler, you don't really know it's a werewolf book until you get a decent way into the story. And same with the storyline with the girl, you don't realize that she's a vampire until you get a good way through the story. So I'll have to. My goal is to read the sequel this year, so I can see how that story ends. But I absolutely love this cover.
Yeah, the cover's amazing and it sounds really interesting. I'll have to put it
Yeah,
on my TBR.
yeah, and so I know Lucas just signed these two books with D&T Publishing, and I was worried they were going to change the covers, because the cover of Rage is a similar artwork,
Hmm.
just a different image. Um, but they didn't. They didn't change the covers. I think they may have changed the color of the cover, but they didn't change the actual artwork, which I was very happy of because I really love this cover.
Yeah, this
It
cover's amazing.
yeah, this story could be about anything. You think kind of maybe zombie because it looks like maybe he's deteriorating, but then, well, maybe he's not. Maybe he's transforming into a werewolf because you can see like sharp teeth and,
Yeah, you can kind of see the
um,
hair coming growing on the face, and his nose is starting to grow like a snout. It's
yeah,
widening and broadening. He's starting to get the wide nostrils of a wolf.
yeah,
So yeah, it's very
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, it's a really interesting concept. Where he goes and lives, they're like in a tree house. Um, and there's like other fae type creatures that get introduced. Um, and he basically goes and lives with these werewolves, and they're like teaching him how to be a werewolf. So it's really cool.
Very cool.
Yeah, so definitely check it out. It's a great story. And I liked it because, it kind of like craps on big box stores in the beginning when Cody's, working at his job. Because I worked for Walmart for a long time and they're crap, those big box stores. So yeah, check it out. It's a great story. I loved it. I definitely got to read that sequel. I've had it sitting on my shelf for about a year. So, but you know me, I read so much.
Yeah, you're gonna get through it. You'll get there. I
Yeah.
mean, I'll put on my TBR maybe, you know, 10 years before I get to it. So
Yeah.
I'm
Yep.
terrible. So
I feel that. So yeah, that was our episode today. As you can tell, we're starting off with some werewolves. We've got some great content planned for our werewolf.
yeah, if you
Uh,
follow us on Facebook, we've got that. I blogged about the schedule loosely last week. If you go find ericbutlerauthor.com, you can find that. But I shared it on our page and also Facebook. So there's a lot of good werewolf books. So we'll be deep diving. And ironically, we will be reading Stephen King. So
mhm,
next week or 2 weeks from now. So you guys can get a head start. That one's a
yeah,
short read. So I think everybody can get into that. I'm sure most everybody's already read it. So
yeah, Cycle of the Werewolf. Yeah, it's very, very short book. Um, so yeah, thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time.
y'all take it easy.